Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Michelle Scheck, and it is my privilege and honor to be serving as the president of Beth Torah Beni Rock campus. It is a joy to welcome you to our synagogue for this special evening dedicated to Jewish education. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the heartbreaking news we awoke to on Sunday from Bondi Beach, Australia. Yet another horrific act of violence against Jews simply for being Jewish. Moments like these shake us, but they also remind us why gatherings such as this matter so deeply. When Jews are targeted, we do not retreat. We come together, we stand stronger, and we choose to fill the world with more light, more learning, and more community. Thank you all for being here tonight with courage, solidarity, and love for our people. We are profoundly grateful to all the partners who helped make this evening possible. CAJE, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education, the Greater Miami Jewish Federation, the Jewish Education Project, and the extraordinary musicians of the South Florida Symphony Orchestra. A very special thank you to Mark Kravitz, who sits at the intersection of all of these organizations and whose vision and leadership brought this remarkable collaboration to life. We also, where is he? We also extend our deepest gratitude to the Gans family, whose generosity makes this evening and all of the sages in the 305 lectures possible. These programs are presented in loving memory of Charlie Gans, a cherished member of our community whose presence is deeply missed. I'd also like to acknowledge some of the people in attendance tonight. From Beth Torah, we have a number of past presidents, Robert Goldfarb and Rochelle Baltuck, as well as Rabbi Ed Farber, Rabbi Emeritus, Cantor Marcos, Sandra Koop. Oh, my husband is a past president too. Stephen Scheck, past president. Rabbi Farber, Cantor Marcos, Sandra Koop, director of the Susie Fisher Early Childhood Center, and Dr. Gabby Raskowski, director of our Lifelong Learning Program. From SAGE, we have current chair Mark Kravitz, past board chair Barbara Black-Goldfarb, board members Melissa Buckner, Dr. Helen Chassett, Evelyn Katz, Sandra Rude, and Ellie Gans. From the Greater Miami Jewish Federation, we have past board chairs Barbara Black-Goldfarb, Steve Kravitz, and Bill Lehman, as well as Michelle Lapgold, Federation's Chief Planning Officer. From the community, we have extraordinary educators and friends in Dr. Craig Carpentieri, Chief Academic Officer of Sheck Hillel Community Day School, Alaya Ze'ev, Director of Hebrew and Judaic Studies at the Lerman Community Day School, Romina Nepartstek, Director of the Early Childhood Academy at Michael Ann Russell JCC, Jenny Tetner, Director of Tauber Academy at Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center, Barbara Spielberg, Director of Judaic Studies at the Innovation School of Temple Beth Shalom, Lior Vogel, Early Education Director at Rambam Day School at Temple Beth Am, Jennifer Flas Gross, Chair of the Magain Shield of Knowledge Initiative at the MAR JCC, Zohar Volosky, Global Executive Director of Zionist Education at the Jewish National Fund, and we are pleased to welcome Alexis Mosley from the Office of Commissioner Mickey Steinbergs. If I did not mention your name, or I happen to be married to you, please forgive me. Tonight's program invites us to reflect, to learn, to celebrate the strength and future of Jewish education, Israel education, and Jewish life. It is a night dedicated to community, to inspiration, to our extraordinary educators, and to the light they bring into the world, especially during this Hanukkah season. At this time, it is my pleasure to welcome Rabbi Farber and Cantor Marcos and our South Florida Symphony musicians to join us together in Hatikva and the lighting of the Hanukkah candles. I invite everyone to rise for Hatikva.
Be seated for a moment, then we'll light candles. We know we call this the Festival of Lights. Festival of Lights in a time that's filled with darkness. There is so much darkness in the world. Michelle referenced the 16 that we lost in a terror attack in Australia. Not only mourn their deaths, we don't know what it means for worldwide Jewry. We don't know how to process it. Christians being slaughtered in Nigeria for being Christians. Students in Brown University being killed for what? Being students? There's a lot of darkness in the world. There's sadness, there's anger, and there's a great deal of fear. But we light candles on Hanukkah. Did you know there was an argument about how you light candles? And of course there's an argument. We can even agree how to light candles. One rabbi, Shammai, the house of Shammai, said you start with 8. Why? Because it's 8 days. And then 7, because it's 7 days. 6, 5, 4, 3. And on the last day, what do you light? 1, right? Because there's only 1 day left. And Hillel said, no, that's not what we Jews do. We never are allowed to diminish light. Not permitted. We increase light. The first day was a miracle. The second day is a bigger miracle. More hope. More looking to the future. And the 8th day, it burns in all its glory. And we know that from the darkness of the beginnings of Hanukkah, when the Greeks took it all and persecuted and murdered, that eventually that Hanukkah would burn brightly, all 8 candles. It was Ben Gurion who said, if you don't believe in miracles, you're not a realist. That's the Jewish world. If we don't believe in miracles, we're not real, because our very existence is a miracle. We will light these candles now, and then each night at home, all of us will keep lighting until we've added so much light to this community that will burn brightly, and the miracle will be a reality. Please rise to the lighting of the candles.
Whose idea was it to get the 5'9" Jewish guy from Brooklyn up on a ladder? I should have worn my stretchy pants. Okay. I hope we have good disability insurance. All right. That circus training would have really paid off now. Let's sing together. Baruch atah Adonai Olam Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu leha מדליק נר של חנוכה. That's why I get paid the big bucks. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavoteinu bayamim hahem ba'zeman hazeh ma'ozor Yeshuati. Echana leshaveach tikon beit tefilati b'sham toda nezabeach leyetachin matbeach mitzoram narbeach azigmor b'shir mizmor chanukat hamizbeach azigmor b'shir mizmor chanukat hamizbeach. I've never been so close to regretting all of my life's decisions. And that's why Michelle Sheck is our president. Well, I can use this one. I'm not a rabbi, but I'm sure I'm allowed to tell you, please be seated. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. No. So I trust that all of you will join me in welcoming the extraordinary musicians, that's you guys, of the South Florida Symphony Orchestra. And to, yes, of course. They play a lot better than I like, I promise you that. To the symphony, thank you not only for your remarkable artistry, but also for your moral centeredness and clarity. You know, after October 7th, when so many institutions chose silence and ambiguity, you chose to speak with courage, and you stood clearly and publicly and proudly with Israel. And so we are deeply honored tonight to welcome Chief Development Officer of the Symphony, Mark Needland, and also acknowledge Executive Director Jacqueline Lorber. When it would have been easier for you to step back, you leaned in toward the Jewish community, and we all felt your presence in a profound way. And so it is my pleasure to welcome the South Florida Symphony Orchestra and their beautiful music.
Nope. It's green. Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sages in the 305, proudly presented by the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education. To understand who SAGE is and what we do, please turn your attention to the screen. SAGE stands for the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education. We've been the central source for all educational needs for the community for over 80 years. Whether it's through a formal Jewish day school or a congregational learning, from early childhood all the way through adult learning. SAGE covers teen travel, SAGE covers March of the Living, the Miami Jewish Film Festival.
It's become the largest Jewish film festival because of the professional management of the film festival and the wisdom of SAGE in promoting it and allowing us to have 100 films shown both in person and virtually.
Our Center for Teen Leadership, proud winner of the Covenant Award, covers everything from going into JCCs and schools and working with teens to teen travel, like our Diller Teen program.
We were able to come and meet with other Jewish teens our age, 10th and 11th graders from Israel and all over the world, and learn about their experiences, how they're similar and different from our own, connect to our Jewish culture.
Thank God there's an organization that can help me, help my school be the best that it can absolutely be. There's JNTP, Jewish New Teacher Project, which SAGE has supported. If I have a new teacher coming in, they get to work with a mentor here in the school, so there's a teacher leadership opportunity, and then the new teacher gets mentorship right along the way. So I'm building in multiple tiers in my school capacity for leadership.
SAGE has provided us with extraordinary professional development through Hebrew at the Center, through better lessons. We are giving our teachers the opportunity to bring their passion and their love and organize it in such a way that it can be transmitted to the students.
There were no robotics in Jewish day schools. And so through SAGE, they were able to bring in robotics and support our teachers with professional development through a partnership with Yerucham. When they come together at the annual robotics competition, it's extraordinary.
In Miami, we have over 25 early childhood centers that span all the denominations, and SAGE really unifies all of these schools. Their Jewish identity is formed from the very first moment that their educational identity is formed. We have been asked to participate in a national pilot program known as Elevated, and I think that's a testament to how strong SAGE is in our community.
The amazing thing about congregations like us, whether it's in our after-school program, which has Jewish content in it, whether it's in our religious school on Sundays and Mondays, most of our staff are not full-time educators, and so SAGE is essential to bring teachers up.
Anyone who has an interest in furthering their Jewish education, SAGE and Adult Learning is the place. The teachers are phenomenal. Many of them are rabbis. They're very well-known people in the community. And it's just wonderful to be able to enhance your Jewish life and just know more and feel much more connected to your Judaism.
In 1988, SAGE and some lay leaders had a vision of creating a Holocaust education program taking teens to Poland and Israel. And that became the March of the Living, which proudly started in Miami.
Seeing it firsthand is way different than just reading about it. Your friends, survivors, singing the Hatikva loud and proud, walking on the road that your ancestors died on for just being Jewish.
You then go to Israel for a week, and you see this light and this hope that Israel brings to the Jewish people.
SAGE, because it's been around for 80 years and has such best-in-class professionals, is able to pivot really quickly to address the urgent needs of our community. That's what happened during COVID, when all of a sudden classes were shut down. More recently, after October 7th, SAGE saw the urgent need to get Israel education, Jewish peoplehood, strengthening Jewish identity to our community, and has infused those things into all aspects of its programming. CAJE is a proud partner of the Greater Miami Jewish Federation. We're trying to strengthen Jewish souls and Jewish identity by teaching our community the beauty of Judaism, our history, building our connection with the State of Israel in a positive, hopeful way. CAJE, the center for me.
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 CAJE, the center for you. Seeing this room so full tonight doesn't just feel good, it matters. Because Jewish identity and a real, resilient connection to Israel don't just happen. They're not guaranteed because we once went to Hebrew school, have a mezuzah on the door, or keep a legendary family brisket recipe pinned to the family WhatsApp. They're built on purpose over time, through education, community, curiosity, and by teaching our children why Judaism matters, not just how it works. Tonight places us right inside Parashat Miketz. Joseph's life at this point is not terrific. A pit, a prison, big dreams, and very small circumstances. But Joseph doesn't rise because he dreams. We all dream. He rises because he prepares. He reads the moments. He plans ahead. He understands that hope without preparation is just optimism wearing a nice outfit. Joseph looks at Pharaoh's dreams and says, we're going to have some good years, and we're going to have some very bad ones. So what does Joseph do? He stores grain, not because he's gloomy or dramatic, but because he's paying attention. He understands that leadership means preparing people before they're hungry. And here's the key move. Joseph doesn't store grain for one outcome or one answer. He builds capacity. He plans for complexity. That, in a very Jewish nutshell, is Jewish education. Jewish education is our grain storage. We don't just inspire dreams. We build what stands underneath them. We prepare minds, identities, and confidence before the hard questions arrive. So when they do, our kids aren't encountering them empty-handed. And just like Joseph didn't store one neat pile labeled the answer, Jewish education doesn't offer one easy solution either. We store ideas, questions, contexts, multiple perspectives, sometimes all at once. Which brings me to one of Judaism's greatest strengths. We are wildly comfortable with many different opinions. Look at the Talmud. One question becomes multiple answers. Each answer has counter-arguments, then commentary on the counter-argument, and somehow, miraculously, clarity emerges through complexity. That's not confusion. That's a system that trusts its people to think. Judaism was never meant to move in a straight line. It's a conversation across generations, across disagreements, and across time. And it's time we approach Israel education the same way. Israel, like Joseph's story, like Jewish history itself, cannot be understood from one angle alone. When we teach students to wrestle, to question, to interpret, we're not weakening their connection, we're strengthening it. The world feels shakier than it did even a few years ago. Conversations are sharper, social media is louder, and for Jewish kids especially, the ground can feel unsteady. And that's why we invest in knowledge, confidence, and connection to Israel before the moments of challenge, so when things get shaky, our children don't. When a student encounters hostility about Israel, we want them to speak, not shrink. When misinformation spreads, we want thinkers, not absorbers. When a teen wears a Magen David, we want pride, not fear. That confidence doesn't happen by accident.
It's taught, modeled, and practiced. Tonight we begin with someone who helps us make sense of this moment, without panic, without platitudes, and without pretending it's simpler than it is. Dr. David Bryfman, CEO of the Jewish Education Project. If Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, David interprets Gen Z, Jewish identity, and teenagers who live online but are hungry for something real offline. And the scale of their work matters. Under David's leadership, the Jewish Education Project supports more than 2,400 educational resources that are accessed by over 13,000 educators every month. Through its signature program, Route 1, over 18,000 teens have participated in immersive Israel experiences since 2021 that shape identity long after flying home. Each year, the Jewish Education Project touches more than 500,000 Jewish families with an ambitious goal to double that impact over the next 5 years. And after October 7th, when confusion and pain demanded deeper understanding, David helped lead educator missions, bringing hundreds of educators to Israel, not for slogans, but for insight they could bring back to classrooms and communities across North America. Now, to be clear, David does not share Joseph's famously bold taste in coats. But when it comes to vision, preparation, and interpreting complicated moments with clarity, he is absolutely a Joseph. He doesn't ask, how do we keep them Jewish? He asks, how do we help them want to be Jewish? Joseph stored grain, David stored insight, strategy, courage, and a steady hand when the community is understandably anxious. After David's remarks, he'll be joined in conversation by CAJE's Executive Director, Rabbi Efrat Zaran Zohar. Together, they represent something essential, where strategy meets soul and national vision connects to local impact. But first, gratitude, because no Jewish gathering truly starts until the thank yous are delivered, the carbs are located, and the agenda is confidently ignored. Tonight, we've done all three. To CAJE, thank you. As board chair, I'm deeply grateful to work alongside professional and lay leaders who understand that strong Jewish futures are built supporting the people who stand at the front of classrooms and communities. To the Greater Miami Jewish Federation, thank you for your leadership and your partnership. To Beth Torah, my family's synagogue for 4 generations, thank you for being a place of warmth, learning, music, and meaning. To the South Florida Symphony Orchestra, thank you for moral clarity and for standing proudly with Israel. And to Ellie Gans, thank you so much for sponsoring CAJE's in the 305 in memory of your son, Charlie Gans, a blessed memory. So we return one last time to Joseph. Joseph's path is anything but simple. It moves through dreams and disasters, clarity and confusion, power and vulnerability. Jewish education exists for moments exactly like this, not to make things tidy, but to make us ready. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs taught that education is the conversation between generations about what truly matters. Tonight's conversation is exactly that, a chance to think deeply, honestly, and courageously about the Jewish future we are preparing together. Please join me in welcoming Dr. David Bryfman, CEO of the Jewish Education Project.
Do you all want to stay on stage or do you want to break? You all right? You good? You sure? Is it easy if you want to stay or you want to go? Let him go. Let us say thank you. Just feels weird having them just sitting there over my shoulder. Thank you very much. Just a few thank yous as well before we get started. Firstly, I want to thank Mark for the really warm introductory comments. I don't think I've ever been compared to Joseph before, so I appreciate that. I'll be sure to tell my kids they'll also find it humorous. And I also want to thank Karen Everett, who's here, the chair of the Jewish Education Project, the president of the Jewish Education Project, for being with me. You'll notice by the accent alone that I don't hail from New York, and this is my first speaking engagement since the first night of Hanukkah. So if you, and this year Hanukkah means something very different to all of us. So for me, who grew up in Melbourne, lived in Sydney, let me just pay tribute before I start. Alexander Kleitman, Rabbi Eli Schlanger, Rabbi Yaakov Levitan, Dan Elkayam, Reuven Morrison, Tibor Weitzen, Sophia and Boris Gurman, Edith Brotman, Peter Meagar, Marika Pogani, as yet 2 unnamed souls, and Matilda, aged 10 years old. Whenever we talk about education, I want to make it really clear from the beginning that there's a tension that every educator goes through whenever they want to talk. There's what I want to say. It's really important. You need to have some of my knowledge, because with my knowledge, you're going to be a little bit smarter, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to know. And over on this side, there's where the kids are at. What's relevant to them? What they're really thinking about. And I got news for you, 99.9% of the time, what's over here doesn't really match what's over there. And that's my tension every single time I walk into a classroom, a summer camp, a youth movement, a group of adults. I got to make a choice. Do I want to tell you what to believe or think or know? And I want to make it really cool and speak to what's really on your mind today. And you know, we all want our kids to think and feel and do things just like we do. But I got news for you. If you tell someone, especially a teenager or a young person, what to think, what to do, or how to feel, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to do exactly the opposite of what you tell them. And we've got to be all right with that. Because there's a definition of education which we all need to understand, and that is allowing young people especially to reach their own conclusions, their own attitudes, their own dispositions, their own beliefs, all on their own. Because the alternative, it's pretty bad when it's called indoctrination, but it just doesn't work. So we do our best as educators, as parents, as Jewish educators, to give our kids the most positive, wonderful experiences, and hope that when it comes to a critical point, a critical juncture in their life, they will make the decision which puts them on the path that we can live with, be happy with, and support them. And so it happens that when we're talking about Israel education specifically, something is at play right now which is really, really important for us to fully understand. And one of the things I promise you tonight is I'm not here to make you all feel good about yourselves. I'm also not here to tell you only what I think, but I want to give you a bit of a nudge, as my grandmother used to say, an utz. Challenge you a little bit. See, I've been to Israel now since October 7th over 10 times. I've met with hundreds, thousands of Israelis, and they've all got different stories to tell. But the one thing they all have in common is they all tell me that Israel is forever changed after October 7th. If they all think Israel is forever changed after October 7th, I got news for you. So too are the Jewish people. And so too must Jewish education and Israel education. Because it's inconceivable that if Israel is completely changed, that we're going to do things exactly the same way that we always have. But we're really good at reverting back to the way things always were. I got news for you. There was this pandemic, 100 years, never seen anything like it. The whole world was going to change. What happened the day after? We went back to doing things exactly the same way as we always did, maybe with a little bit of Zoom in between. But this new reality that we're in requires us to think and act a bit differently, because the world we live in is really, really different. The first thing I've said is really important to understand. Israel is Jewish education. What? In many places, Israel is this thing you do as an elective or a chug or an activity or Yom Israel at summer camp, or when you get to a certain age, it's something you do on the side. No. You study Jewish history, you study Tefillah, you study Hebrew language, you study Israel. It is inconceivable to be a Jew in the world today without having a relationship with the land, people, and state of Israel. If for no other reason than more than 50% of the world's Jews live there, and you can't understand Jewish history, heritage, tradition, values, or law without actually believing that Israel is the place of Jewish existence, our homeland. You want to call yourself a Zionist? Go for it. You don't? I'm not going to give you a label or tell you what to do, but that's my definition of Zionism, by the way. That you consider the ancestral Jewish homeland to be in the land of Israel? It's Zionism. So I don't want to get into debates tonight of all these young people who call themselves non-Zionists or anti-Zionists. I'm coming out and telling you, you cannot be a Jew in the world today without having some sort of relationship with the land, people, or state of Israel. And you define yourself as a I got news for you. At the moment in which you define yourself as a non-something, you're actually in relationship with it, whether you like it or not. And it's important for us as educators to understand that. But there are a few things which are different about this generation, which are critical to understand. And I know what you're going to tell me. I know it already. Efrat's going to ask me about it later on. Every community says this to me. We're different here. You're going to tell me about national trends, and we're going to say Miami is different. I got news for you, Miami is different. Every community is different. But when you're talking about teenagers today, I got news for you, they're basically all the same. Why? Because they all get their news from one same single feed, one same algorithm. And by the way, it's not their day school or their camp, it's not even their parents. It's this thing called social media. The TikTok. Really bad. Yeah, there are some things in this world which you can fight and some things which you can't fight. After one of the wars in Gaza, a group of parents came up to me and they said, we want you at the Jewish Education Project to ban all Jewish kids from going on social media. It's a really winning strategy to engage Jewish teens, by the way. I said, we can't do it. We don't want to do it. They're there. It's here to stay. It's going to grow. So, all right. Try this other strategy. For every non-Jewish influencer out there saying Israel is bad, I want you to put a positive Jewish influencer out there to say it's really cool. So I tried to find out and work out in my head which Jewish influencers I knew which have more of an impact than Dua Lipa, who has 76.5 million followers. I came up short. For those of you who don't know who Dua Lipa is, don't worry, it's another discussion. We can talk about her another time. But what I can do as an educator is I can teach my kids how to disseminate information, good and bad, because that's a skill that they need in life and not just when it comes to Israel. And the thing which I'll tell you over and over again is
Good Israel education is good Jewish education, which is good education. And we can't lose sight of that. Good Israel education is good Jewish education is good education. But here's where it gets complicated. Because our kids today belong to the most diverse generation the Jewish people has ever known. We have raised them as mensches, which is our big success story. They love their fellow human being. They believe in the dignity of all humanity. When we've done our job well, they believe in the power that they have to make the world a better place. It's what some of you might understand as being universal values. It's what some of you might refer to as tikkun olam. But it's the pride in which we have that in being Jewish, we can actually contribute to making the world a better place. The universal values. Fine. Here's the part which is a bit uncomfortable to share. This is not a political statement. This is a political observation. That country that I just spoke about, that Israel country, has had a government in place for over 3 decades, with an exception of 2 years somewhere in between there, which has been led by a system of values that don't reflect those same universal values that the growing number of Jewish teenagers in North America have. By design, the government of Israel is very tribal, driven by security, driven by the particular interest of saving Jewish lives and saving the sovereign Jewish state at all costs, often at the disregard of other people. Yes, there are other people living in that land as well. And we need to understand that for our kids who have grown up with these progressive values that we have filled them with pride, and now coming into a tension with the country that they see governed with other policies that really do come into contact and contest with their own value system. So don't be surprised if your young person says to you, I don't agree with the current policies of the Israeli government. I got news for you. Close to 50% of Israel's population also doesn't agree. But that shouldn't disqualify them or alienate them from being part of the conversation of the Jewish people. And here is where we've failed. Because we've allowed certain people in this world to hold the label of Zionism and classify it as something which many of our young people do not believe speaks to them. And here I want to be really, really clear and really, really harsh. This is not a political statement. It's an observation that we have two peoples going in different directions. And unless we do a better job of educating our young people that yes, there is a place for them in this entire spectrum of what it means to be Jewish and what it means to be a Zionism, they will turn the other way. And the loudest voices they happen to be hearing on social media from the Israeli government are not ones which emblematize their value system. I'll give you the hardest example because it happened just last week. You think it's tough being a Jewish educator today? Whoa. Our kids are looking at social media and an Israeli politician comes onto their screens with a noose. For him, it was a symbol that he wants to basically bring about the death penalty for terrorists. An entire generation of American youth see the noose as something completely different, which speaks to every single value that you have taught them needs to be eradicated in this world. One symbol alone completely alienates a generation of young people. You don't think they see it? Believe me, These kids saw it. It's what I call now the contemporary Anne Frank moment. If you were a kid growing up who wanted to put your Jewish head in the sand and not raise your hand proudly as a Jew, fine, your choice. I wanted to fit in like everybody else. But the moment your teacher brought the diary of Anne Frank into your classroom, you had no choice, because every other kid looks at you in the classroom, in the workplace, on the sporting, whatever it is. And you suddenly have this awakening that you're part of this broader people. And the same thing happened on October 7th. There is not one Jewish kid in the entire United States of America who did not have their Jewish awakening happen on that day, because other people looked at them and associated them with what's taking place on the other side of the world. For better and for worse, by the way. We can talk about the catastrophe that took place in Sydney on Sunday. We can also talk about the heroism which took place. Which is the majority. And I like to say what social media does is amplify the voice of the very, very noisy minority and doesn't give enough credibility to the really, really silent majority. And with that, we need to understand that if we look at the arc of Jewish history, especially in Israel, especially over the last 2 years, it's been tough. The rise of anti-Semitism has been real. Our kids, like many of you, have felt under threat. And for many, it has actually arisen their Jewish awakening. But I've got news for everybody. Judaism built by external forces, by what we might call the ois of the world, is not enduring. It can't be transmitted. It cannot be passed from generation to generation. And it sounds cliche to say it, but if we cannot enhance the joys of Jewish life at the expense of those ois, then we will fail as a Jewish people. We will not be judged as a people by what took place to us on October 7th and in its aftermath. We will be judged. We will be judged by how we respond to those events. And shame on us if after what's taken place in the last 2 years, we go back to doing things the way we always did before. And with that, I want to remind everybody that when we light the Chanukiah, the word Chanukah has in it the same shoresh, the same root word of chinuch, of education. When you light the Chanukiah, you are dedicating the light, whichever story you want to tell. You want to tell the miracle of oil, you want to tell Maccabees, you go with whatever story you want. But there's something taking place where we're rededicating the miracle of what it means to be Jewish in the world. And for you, the educators out there, PS, who are undervalued, underpaid, overworked, stressed out, been totally pushed around since the pandemic and October 7th, you deserve every bit of kavod, every bit of honor that we all can give you, so that every time you enter into that classroom, that camp, that youth movement, that early childhood center, you are actively dedicating and rededicating the life of every one of those learners that you come into contact with. So before we invite Efrat to come up here and have a bit of a chat, I want to really make sure that I wish all of you a real Chag Urim Sameach. May you all continue to spread light in the world, because the world really, really needs you, and it really needs some of that light these days. So Efrat, come and join me up here. We're not going to sing.
David, thank you so much. Very inspiring. and of course, evoking lots of questions. So the first question that I want to ask you is, can you please go into more depth with our audience to tell the difference between what we would call Hasbara, or Israel advocacy, and Jewish education? Because so much of education has been conflated, those two things.
You remember what I said about here? That's Hasbara, from the word lehasbir, to explain. It's an apologetic. Someone did something, I need to explain why they did and why it's important. And Hasbara is really, really important. There's a real place for it in the Jewish world today. We need to be proud of who we are, and we need to lobby and we need to promote what it means to be Jewish and promote Israel in the community. But by definition, Hasbara is a unidirectional dogmatic form of transmission of knowledge. You tell me X, I'll tell you Y. Bibi did this, I'll tell you why. Zionism is racism? No, it's not. Martin Luther King said this. Resolution 242 said, Hasbara has become the ability to try and defend the policies of the current Israeli government in public. And there's a place for it. And many of you represent APAC and ADL and JCRCs and all of these organizations which do a wonderful, wonderful job doing exactly that. However, no Jewish teenager or young person has ever been turned on to Jewish life because of Hasbara, unless they're what I call a direct descendant of APAC. Jewish education is engaging, it's thoughtful, it's inquisitive, it's curious, and as a result, I might want to get involved in advocacy. But it's not my first step. Kids have to reach their own conclusions. They are not the foot soldiers of the Jewish people or of the Israeli government. They shouldn't be treated that way. They deserve more respect, and they deserve more credibility and authenticity in order to become the people that they're supposed to be, and not the active soldiers of us, for them to do our business for us. Is that helpful?
Hopefully. And we know from research that we need to be building more nuance and complexity into the way that we educate about Israel. Most of us here, grew up with the, just pure love of Israel. Israel, right or wrong. There was no complexity, very little nuance. That served us for a while, but in these challenging times, it seems it's not serving our young people. So at what age should we, in our parental roles or in our classrooms, be building more nuance and more complexity about Israel?
Okay. This question is a two-part question, right? Firstly, there's the age appropriateness, and secondly, there's what do we mean by complexity and nuance. Complexity and nuance has become code for acknowledging that things in Israel are never one-sided and one-dimensional, and a lot of stuff that we as Jewish educators fed our kids for a long period of time was exactly that. There's a famous slogan in most Jewish studies curriculum which talks about the quote, which may or may not have been said by Ben-Gurion, he's already been quoted this evening, that we are a people with no land coming to a land with no people. Zionism 101. It's factually incorrect. It's wrong, and if a teacher says that to a kid, it's actually a lie. There were people there, and there are still people there, and whether you want to call them Palestinians or not, that's your prerogative. But if we are going to teach authentically what it means to be a Zionist today, we need to understand the Palestinian narrative, and we need to understand there are still two people struggling for the same piece of land. By the way, that's not at the expense of the Zionist narrative. I know a lot of Jewish educators that have gone so far to one side, all they want to talk about is the Palestinian narrative. No, it's too much of an overcorrection. So at what age are kids capable of understanding there are two people fighting over the same thing? Go to any early childhood classroom, go to any playground, and you will see two people fighting over the same thing and a teacher trying to mediate between those kids on how they come to some sort of compromise as to what they're going to do with that piece of chocolate or that ball or whatever it might be. And now we have research to suggest that young people, as early as preschool, are able to understand that the world is complicated, especially when you have two or more people fighting over or competing for the one thing. And you think they don't hear it? They think they don't hear it from you? I'm not saying we should start teaching Edward Said to 5-year-olds. But at a certain point in one's life, and I say it's the bar mitzvah or the bat mitzvah, because I say call our bluff. We as a Jewish community have kept on telling these kids that when they become 12 or 13 that they become adults. So let's treat them like adults. They're not stupid. They think we are. When we feed them only one type of narrative and they hear everything else, they know we're trying to pull something over their eyes. And here's the one last thing I'll say about this. We need, as Jewish educators, to teach our kids about the Nakba, about Deir Yassin, about Sabra and Shatila, about Rafa. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, adult education needs to come back onto the agenda. Why? Not because I think those things are important parts of the Jewish narrative, because we deserve for them to hear it first and foremost in the safe environments that we create for them before they possibly hear those terms in an antagonistic or hostile world in the colleges or the campuses that they are inevitably going to attend. We do our kids a disservice if we hide those core pieces of Palestinian narrative from our kids, pretending as if they did not exist. We need to be better. We need to be more honest with ourselves, and we need to be more honest with our kids.
And you also mentioned in your talk that we need to teach them certain skills, but you didn't go into any detail. Could you give us some detail? What are these skills that you're alluding to?
Any educators in the room? Woo! Let's hear it for the educators. Look, any educator knows there are three things in education which matter. Yeah? We call it knowledge, behavior, and we call it attitudes, or we call it the ABCs, affective, behavioral, and cognitive, or you call it the head, the heart, and the hands. Whatever language you want to use, it's important. There is a knowledge base that our young people need to know, and they are deficit in that knowledge base. We saw it after October 7th, and by the way, I know there are some adult educators in the room. We also have, statistically speaking, one of the more illiterate generations of Jewish adults that we've also known. Conversely, we also have more adults engaging in Jewish learning than any other time in Jewish history, go figure. But we need to know more stuff. I had this idea once that I wanted every kid to learn the words of Hatikva. Not so they could mumble along, but they could actually understand what those words actually meant. And then I have this plan that I want every kid to learn what the Declaration of Israel's Independence means as a core canon piece of Jewish text. The entire piece? Maybe. Paragraph 1 and paragraph 13. Really? 13? Yeah, 13. If you don't know what paragraph 13 is in the Declaration of Independence, go study it. It's the most important piece of contemporary Israeli source material that we have that we should all be aspiring to. But knowledge for knowledge's sake doesn't work very well for young people today. By the way, it doesn't work for many of us. It needs to have some sort of reason for existing. Yes, there are many people that study Torah Lishma. Great, good. I wish there were more of us. Most people study Torah or study Jewish learning because it has some other benefit to their life. And that's where the behaviors and the values come into play. As a result of Jewish learning, I want our young people to become better versions of themselves, to become more constructive members of the communities in which they live, and to become people that are capable of making the world a better place. I need to teach them those skills. I need to give them the feeling that they're able to do all of those things. It starts sometimes with knowledge, it sometimes then goes to affect, it then sometimes goes to behavior, and sometimes it goes the completely opposite direction. Over there, if they want pizza, give them pizza. I'll give them knowledge later on, but whatever's going to get them in the door, if that's what you need to do, give them that pizza. But it needs to be these three things, what they need to be able to do, what every teacher needs to be able to do: knowledge, affect, and behavior. There needs to be a doing component of what it means to be a young Jew in the world today.
So you grew up in Australia, as you mentioned. You've lived in several communities around the United States. You now live in New York City area, and you have traveled the globe, visiting Jewish communities in America, Israel, and beyond. So selfishly here in Miami, how do you see us in that huge landscape of the Jewish community writ large?
For starters, Miami has for long held some of the strongest leadership of the North American Jewish community. And I think you need to acknowledge, and you might be some people who split their time between the Northeast and Miami, but you definitely have what a teacher of mine says, we have in the Jewish people, we have Klei Kodesh, we have the instruments of holiness which help us perform, but we also have Lay Kodesh. We also have holy lay leaders who make things happen as well. So you all have been blessed in this community for many years to have really strong leadership we should be very, very proud of. The other thing which is important, and anybody who knows anything about Miami, is that you're prepared to do things differently if you need to. You're prepared to take risks and take chances. So when the whole country is backing away from Jewish day school education, Florida is the only state in the country which is actually increasing dramatically the number of kids enrolled in Jewish day schools. That's something to be proud of. The third thing is, and I'm not going to quiz everybody here on their demographic background, is you represent a demography of the Jewish people which is not common in many other communities. I was fortunate enough last year to spend some time in Argentina, which...
Argentina.
Woohoo! Let's talk. The food was amazing. But going to Argentina was like going back to Melbourne in many ways. It's a community built on Zionist principles, on Hebrew language, on cultural infusion, which we don't see in many other places. That's the good news. The bad news is you're raising American kids. It's also good news, by the way. The American dream has always been to raise American kids. The bad news for you is they're not going to be just like you. But I've got news for all of you. How many of you are living a Jewish life just like your parents or grandparents? I got pretty good chances here that we're all developing in different places the generations that came before us. There is very few places in the Jewish world where grandkids, the parents and the kids look, do and feel exactly the same in the Jewish world. It's not represented in this room tonight. It might be represented in another room here tonight, but not here. But the decision to lead both a Jewish and an American life means that these choices are going to be fluid, and it means that we're going to be making choices all the time which reflect both the history that we want our kids to basically be able to carry on and transmit to them, and they're also going to be developing cultures all by themselves. So I'll give you a little quick example. There's this whole phenomenon in the Jewish world about these independent minyanim popping up everywhere. I don't like my parents' shul, so what am I going to do? I'm going to DIY. I'm going to make my own shul. And the rabbi usually, no offense to the rabbi usually will look at those young people who are creating their own little minyan and they'll say, oh, I can't believe you're leaving your parents' legacy. You're abandoning the shul. You're not doing what we raised you to do. You're fourth generation here. You have to come to... And the kid looks at the rabbi and says, because only kids can do this, what are you saying? You gave me all the skills and the knowledge that I need to create my own meaningful, religious, spiritual community that really has resonance for me and something that I want to be part of because it speaks to me and my friends. That is the biggest success that any of us could actually hope for in a Jewish child. Now, I understand the tension because the rabbi's got a membership quota to actually, right? I understand the tension, but that's what change is all about. And to remind you where I started today, if Israel is forever changed after October 7th, so too will be the Jewish people, and so too must be Jewish education. We cannot be afraid of change. A community as robust, dynamic, and plentiful as the one in Miami is should be able to withstand gum v'gum, both and. Carrying on the traditions, whether they're coming from Argentina or they're coming fourth generation from this congregation, and the newness. Because I've got news for you, if you didn't realize it, there are people coming to this community as well. And they want to be a part of it, and they're going to like some things you do, and they're going to want to do some things differently. So I love coming to Florida because it represents so much of the rich tradition of Jewish American life, and it also represents a lot of the freshness and the newness, the new ideas and innovation that's also possible in a community like this as well.
So just looking back over some of the things that you've said, you know, there seems to be sort of two camps among the committed Jewish population, right? There are people who are described as the untroubled committed, who are Israel right or wrong, Israel's in a war, and therefore we stand for it no matter what. It doesn't matter who's in charge, who's in the government, none of that matters, because we're in some sort of a war, either with Islamic fundamentalism or with extremists of all kind, or in an actual war with Hamas or some other entity. And then there are the people who are considered the troubled committed, and Rabbi Daniel Hartman has written about them because he feels that he himself is part of that group, who are advocating for moral expectations of Israel. Even in the midst of war, even in the midst of threat, we still must demand that Israel, you know, rise to the aspirations that we've always expected if we are, let's say, liberal Zionists as he is. How do teachers parse that? How do people who are supposed to convey a message work between this and this?
When I was a young man, when I was growing up, there were two rules which governed the discourse in most Jewish communities around the world. One, if you were a Jew living outside of Israel, it was your responsibility to at least publicly represent the viewpoints of the democratically elected government of the day. And two, you were never allowed to wash Israel's dirty laundry in public. Those rules have changed, whether you like it or not. And as my friend Tal Becker from the Hartman Institute says, just because we don't want to wash dirty laundry in public doesn't mean we don't wash our dirty laundry at all. And it's important because the kids have changed these rules. The kids have demanded from us that we need to accept that there are flaws in everything in the world today, including the country we currently live in. It doesn't mean that I am going to abandon the entire enterprise, although some of them talk as if they might. Just because you don't like what's happening over in that country, we have to make sure our kids understand there is another pathway to be completely connected to that country. Here's the example that I use. I don't know how prevalent it is for you. I meet in my life a lot of young people who define themselves as non-Zionists. And I ask them what that means. And they tell me, I don't like Bibi. I don't like what's taking place in Gaza. I don't like what I hear about the settler violence in the West Bank. Got news for those kids. They're going to feel really, really comfortable on any Saturday night in Tel Aviv at one of the protest rallies there waving an Israeli flag. And they're going to be featured on the front page of Haaretz any given day. So just because they call themselves a non-Zionist doesn't mean to me I've done a poor job in explaining to them that my camp, my tent, is big enough for them. That's on me. But that kid for me is in the tent. I'm not talking about anti-Zionists. That's a whole other story. I don't want to give that group of people any bandwidth tonight because it's just too painful for me, even especially this week, to even talk about them. I'm happy to talk about it afterwards. Very, very few of the kids that we're talking about are there, but let's talk about the ones that are in our tent. And it's what's important about this group is really, really important because they're right. I don't want to be political here. In their eyes, a lot of what they are seeing in Israel is morally objectionable. And I need to make this very, very clear. I said before, good Jewish education is good Israel education is good education. There's one word which is key to any form of good education, and that's morality. All education must be moral and hold itself to the highest ethical standards and responsibilities. And if we allow anything to infringe upon the morality and ethics, then we are not doing what I consider to be the right or the good education that our young people demand of us and deserve from us. So the labels are helpful in terms of understanding our kids. What I need you all to understand, that the rules by which a community is governed are different to those which govern an educational platform. If someone comes into this congregation, and say this congregation wants to have a panel on Israel, you can choose who you want to platform on this bima. They're your rules. You can decide who is in and who is out. If they support BDS, they're out. If they're a Kahanas on the other side, they're out. Whatever you decide, your decision. Make the decision. In, out, who you want to expose your congregation to, your JCC to, whoever. If you're a Jewish educator, you do not have that luxury. If a young person walks into your classroom, your summer camp, your youth group, regardless of what their beliefs are, your primary objective is to love that learner, to accept that learner, to accept that family, to welcome them into your institution, and to make sure that they feel embraced by the Jewish community. You can set up all your parameters, you can do what you need to do. But the worst case scenario for us as a Jewish community is not to kick somebody, is not to say that your viewpoints are not acceptable, but it's for somebody to leave the Jewish people completely because we've put up certain barriers. And this is happening. I'll tell you what's happening right now. There are Hillel campuses right now that because of their viewpoints, often dictated to them by funders or stakeholders, young people are no longer celebrating Shabbat at those campuses. That is the biggest busha, the biggest shame for us to actually conflict, that we're pushing our young people away. For you as Jewish educators, you need to embrace them all. And if you're a lay leader in this room, or you're a federation person, or a funder, what's your number one responsibility? Support your educators. The amount of Jewish educators that I've met, the amount of Jewish educators that I've met in the last 2 years who have said, we know what to do, but we're too scared to do it. We're too scared the rabbi's looking over my shoulder. We're too scared the parents are going to yell at me if I say the Palestinian word. Our educators know what to do. Allow them to be the best possible educators they can possibly be.
So the final question is, what question haven't we asked? What topic haven't we covered? What haven't we?
The question that we haven't really asked is like, what do you do on those days when it all gets too much? If you can't acknowledge that there are some days when it's just too tough, then you're no longer human. The number one thing that we did with our Jewish educators, with my staff, even with my board, when we travel around the world, is try and give educators a time just to be themselves. How do you feel? What issues are you going through? I ask this of rabbis all the time. When was the last time you stopped and paused since October 7th to reflect upon your feelings and relationships? They're running from sermon to sermon.
Crisis to crisis.
Crisis to crisis. The number one thing, the piece we need to keep primary here at Efrat, we need to stop being reactive to the dilemmas and challenges and obstacles facing the Jewish people. Israel education and Jewish education will only be successful once we become proactive, once we become preparing our young people for the world in which they're about to live in. And stop treating our kids as if they are the people of tomorrow. Our young kids are the people of today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that is exactly what the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education in Miami is aspiring to do, to be proactive, to answer and see, analyze the trends, design programs to meet them, change our curricula in order to make sure that we're doing that. And we hope that all of you will continue to read about SAGE through our Friday newsletter and learn all the different ways that we are actually addressing these issues.
She's
So
the
thank
best.
you. Thank you. And now I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Bella Tendler-Krieger, to offer some closing words.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here tonight. As Efrat said, I'm Bella Tendler-Krieger, and I'm Director of Adult Learning and Growth at CAJE. I want to express deep gratitude to David Bryfman. Thank you so much for your insights and for really challenging things to think about and to chew over. I'm sure there'll be a lot of good conversations afterwards. And of course, thank you, Efrat, for your really insightful talk back. And I really want to thank the Gans family and Ellie, my dear friend. Heartfelt gratitude to all of you for your generosity, offered in loving memory of Charlie Gans, which made the entire Sages in the 305 lecture series possible. So thank you so much. If you look at the screen just for 1 minute, and I'm going to let you guys leave in a moment, we have the next 3 events in our Sages in the 305 lecture series up there. Please save the dates. We have Rabbi Dina Weiss, who's coming on January 12th. This is a women's only event in affiliation with Women's Philanthropy. And it's going to be Rabbi Dina Weiss speaking about leading by example. Then we have Rabbi Ethan Tucker on February 12th in Temple, Judea down south, if any of you want to get in a car. And he's going to be speaking about who is a Jew. And finally, back in this neighborhood, on March 4th, we have Rabbi Shai Held at Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center around the corner, who's going to be speaking about loving your neighbor. Now, all of these 3 speakers are internationally renowned teachers and lecturers from the Hadar Institute, whom we partnered with this year to bring in their curricula and their wonderful wisdom to our community. I hope you'll save these dates and join us for all of them. They're all going to be free of charge, like this night. And now, if you look at the screen, you'll see a flyer for the Miami Jewish Film Festival, which is going to start next month. And I hope to see you all at the movies. We have an incredible lineup, and Efrat and I are both going to be involved in moderating a lot of these films, interviewing the directors, the actors, so you'll get to ask questions and see what's going on and get real insight on the films. And finally, please save the date for the launch of our Adult Learning Online Spring Semester, which will launch on January 12th. We're going to have an incredible range of courses for you to take if you want. And now, I want to invite all of you to join us for some sufganiyot, latkes, and Hanukkah treats out there, and I'm sure you'll have lots to discuss with each other about the ideas we learned today. Thank you.
הנשמה נצחית ואין לה גוף או זמן ויום אחד כשאעלה לשמיים אבוא בפני האלוקים לתת חשבון אולי יוכל להסתכל לו בעיניים ולהרגיש שלם מול כל השיגעון והימים לימדו אותי כאן בינתיים כמו הטבע אני כל יום משתנה אז משחרר שהדמיון יפרוס כנפיים יוביל אותי לאן שהוא רוצה בכל ראשיה